r/askreddit. What was the biggest coincidence in history? A British submarine and a French submarine accidentally bumped into each other under the ocean. They didn't know the other was there due to their stealth technology. I feel like, while bumping into each other accidentally sounds funny and all, that two pressurized underwater vehicles bumping into each other is not very good at all. Did the captains exchange insurance information? The British one was probably driving on the wrong side of the ocean. In 1938, a baby fell out of a 4th floor window and onto a man sweeping the street named Joseph Figlock. They were both injured, but survived. About 1 year later, the same baby fell out of the same window and was caught by Joseph Figlock. I hope Joseph kept it. It was probably safer with him. I mean, where were this kid's parents? And why didn't they learn their lesson after his first trip out the window? In 1974, a taxi in Bermuda struck a man named Erskine Lawrence Eben who was riding a moped, killing him. Exactly 1 year later, the man's brother, Neville, died while riding the very same moped on the very same street after being struck by a taxi driven by the same driver carrying the same passenger. Thought hitmen weren't supposed to use the same methods twice? Okay, it's been a full year since that traumatic incident when that taxi I was riding struck and killed a man. It's taken months of therapy, but I think I'm ready to give taxi riding another go. Well, it's Bermuda. There's only like 1,000 people on that island. It was a good chance. There were shipwrecks in 1664, 1785, and 1820 that each had one survivor. Each survivor was named Hugh Williams. Dude, he was a vampire. Totally. Naming my son Hugh Williams so he never has to worry about dying at sea. I think the Aladdin movie and my family was a better coincidence than that. I was named Sadara. I married a man who makes a perfect Aladdin cosplayer in 1987. Think Nima. In 1988, 4 months before they started working on the Aladdin movie, I had a daughter and named her Jasmine. Now get this, in the October before the release of the Aladdin movie I had another daughter who looks so much like the first they could be twins. That one's called Crystal. Then the Aladdin movie is released. Aladdin looks like my husband, the Disney princess is named Jasmine. We went crazy in the house when up popped a character on screen named Sadara. Like coincidence, coincidence, coincidence. And then boom, they give Jasmine a twin in the episode 2 to Tangle. But not just any twin, a twin sister. To this day I still think someone in the office knew us. The Germans of World War I spent a long time trying to disguise a ship, SMS Cap Trafalgar, as the RMS Carmania, only to send it out and have it run into the real RMS Carmania. It was promptly obliterated. This reminds me of Team Fortress 2, playing a spy and meeting someone you are disguised as. I hope they communicated with each other. Germans, this is RMS Carmania. Over. Real ship. Comma whispers, fire. The brother of John Wilkes Booth saved Abraham Lincoln's son Robert's life the year before Lincoln was killed. That son of a bitch didn't send me a thank you card or anything, John. I'll sort him out, bro. This reminds me of a trial in my state a few years ago. A cop performed CPR on a guy and saved his life, who ended up shooting the cop in the head later. Only guy on death row in the state. Mark Twain being born when the Halley's Comet passed 1835 and predicting that he would die when it would pass again in 1910. Spoiler alert. He was right. He died on the exact day that the comet passed. Did he really die, or was he dropped off and picked back up? When Soviet archaeologists opened the tomb of Tamerlane, one of Genghis Khan's descendants and a conqueror in his own right, founder of the Timurid Empire, an inscription inside the casket was found, which read, "Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." 3 days after the tomb was opened and the body removed, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union via Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion of all time. To add to that, Tamerlane was reburied with full Islamic ritual in November 1942, just before the Soviet victory at the Battle of Stalingrad. Something similar happened more recently in Carlisle in the UK. A huge stone was installed in an underpass with a 16th century curse inscribed on it in 2001. That year disease killed almost all of the cattle in the area, completely ruining the farming community for which the area is known. Also, a major factory closed down and a flood destroyed much of the city center. Carlisle United Football Club were relegated that year as well. There were calls for the stone to be destroyed, and at a meeting the council insisted that it would remain, but they did bless it, which seems to have removed the curse. The artist was quoted as saying, "If I thought my sculpture would have affected one Carlisle United result, I would have smashed it myself years ago." Edit. I almost forgot. That same year a man also walked into a Greggs and stabbed a baby in the throat as he lay in his mother's arms, killing him instantly. Edgar Allan Poe published just one novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, released in 1838. The novel tells of a doomed Antarctic journey in which 4 shipwrecked crewmen decide to eat cabin boy Richard Parker in order to survive. In 1884, 4 crew members survived the shipwreckage of a vessel named the Mignonette. The survivors decided to eat their cabin boy in order to live. As fate would have it, that cabin boy's name was Richard Parker. I think I'm right in saying that Jan Martel named the tiger in his book The Life of Pi Richard Parker after this cabin boy. In the days leading up to the Allied invasion of Normandy, a British newspaper's crossword puzzle solution words correlated with the code names related to the attack. Words like Omhor, Utor, and even Overlord and Neptune. The coincidence scared British High Command so much that they arrested and interrogated the crossword's creator. Edit. Spelling. There was an entertaining TV drama made a few years ago about this. According to that, the crossword compiler was an English teacher at a school in the south of England who compiled crosswords and sent them into the newspapers as a hobby. As a fun English exercise for his pupils, he would ask them to find unusual words that he could use in his crosswords. The pupils were all schoolboys aged around 11 and 12, so naturally they spent nearly all their spare time hanging around and playing near the many army bases and camps dotted around the area in preparation of the invasion. The show inferred that the boys picked up these words being bandied about by the American and British servicemen they were around. Not sure how, as it was all supposedly ultra secret, and when the schoolteacher asked them for random words, the ones like Omhor, Utor and Overlord were among the many they suggested. Now how accurate this is very much in doubt, as it was based on a true story type show, so it's probably 100% bullshit, but it was a good watch and a fun theory nevertheless. The camera's not working as the guards napped outside Epstein's cell while he hung himself. I'm convinced that Fugger is still alive until I see a body. The first man to die during the building of the Hoover Dam was J.G. Tierney, on the 20th of December, 1922. The final man to die during the project was Patrick W. Tierney, his son, in 1935, also on the 20th of December. I told them not to go into that damn business, MRS. Tierney. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both died on the same day, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, the 4th of July 1826. And John Adams' last words were, "Thomas Jefferson still survives." Or so the story goes. James Monroe also died on the 4th of July, albeit in a different year, which means that the early presidents were 3 for 5 for dying on that date. John Quincy Adams must have been pretty fucking careful whenever the 4th of July rolled around. My wife was born on the 27th of January. Her younger sister and brother also born on the 27th of January. Her mom had a twin. Her firstborn daughter, later than my wife, also born on the 27th of January. All natural births. Not induced. She was special in so many other ways, but I thought this was pretty weird in a wonderful way. Poor dad, only getting laid once a year. Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater. Kennedy was shot in a Ford Lincoln. Both were succeeded by President Johnson. Princip, giving up on his mission, just happened to be at a deli on the same street Archduke Franz Ferdinand happened to have ended up by a wrong turn, who just happened to be Princip's target. It wasn't a coincidence. The assassins calculated the most likely routes for the Archduke's car after the first assassination failed, and sent Princip to wait outside the cafe. The lucky assassin story came from a 1998 Brazilian novel called 12 Fingers, then a British documentary mistook it for non-fiction, and the rest is false history. Not as much a coincidence as it is luck that antibiotics was only discovered because the scientists that found it didn't clean his things. In Limburg, the Netherlands, there is a tradition of an old, fantasy, military-style parade and marksman's competitions. Once a year all 150 or so guilds association come together for one big festival which is called OLS, Old Limburgian Marksman's Festival. The winner gets to organize this festival to upcoming year. It is a big honor to win the marksman's competition as it in groups of 6 and the marksmen have to hit every shot at a cubes as small as 0.5x 0.5x 0.5 cm at a distance of about 22 meters until there is only one team left. One of the smallest townships, about 50 inhabitants, has won this competition twice. Once in 1914 and once in 1939. Twice it fucked shit up big time all over Europe. They have since disbanded their shutterage to prevent WWII. Lol, I just imagine the town of 50 people thinking that they're all that standing between everyone and WW3. Hitler, Trotsky, Tito, Freud, and Stalin lived in the same town in 1913 at one point. Wasn't a town. It was a city, Vienna. It was pretty much the place to be at the time. Batman and Superman both have a mom named Martha. Why did you say that name? The guy who shot and killed Adolf Hitler was also named Adolf Hitler. Maybe not the biggest coincidence but the ones related to Abe Lincoln and JFK. I copied the list online below. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960. The names Lincoln and Kennedy each contain 7 letters. Both were particularly concerned with civil rights. Both wives lost their children while living in the White House. Both presidents were shot on a Friday. Both were shot in the head. Lincoln's secretary, Kennedy, warned him not to go to the theater. Kennedy's secretary, Lincoln, warned him not to go to Dallas. Both were succeeded by Southerners. Both successors were named Johnson. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. John Wilkes Booth was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald was born in 1939. Both assassins were known by their 3 names. Both names are comprised of 15 letters. Booth ran from the theater and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater. Booth and Oswald were killed before their trials. Edit, removed a line that was proven to be false, made a change to another line. On the 7th of July 2005, an anti-terror drill was happening depicting multiple bombs being set off on London's underground. During the drills, multiple bombs were set off on London's underground. That we exist. On 9/11, NORAD was scheduled to conduct a test of hijacked planes being used as suicide weapons against high-profile NIC targets. According to reports, when the planes did first hit the towers, some staff were confused why the test was starting an hour sooner than scheduled and it delayed some responses at the national level. Napoleon tried to invade Russia. It was that winter that was the most brutal winter Russia has ever had in history. Hitler tried to invade Russia. But it was that winter that was the most brutal winter Russia ever had since Napoleon tried to invade it. It was even worse. Lesson? Don't invade Russia. Or if you do it in the spring to summer. Not fall to winter. Twins born in 1940 from Ohio, living 50 miles away from each other, each grew up knowing nothing of the other's existence. They. Seth MacFarlane missing one of the 9/11 flights. I don't recall the details but I believe the telephone was supposedly invented by 2 people in completely different parts of the world who had no contact with each other and each finished inventing it within days of each other. Why didn't they just call each other? Ronald Opus came from a very dysfunctional and abusive home. Growing despondent, he decided to commit suicide. On the 23rd of March 1994 he leapt from the roof of the apartment building. As he passed the 9th floor window he was suddenly shot by an unintended shotgun blast, killing him instantly. They tracked the blast to the broken window on the 9th floor. It was from the apartment of an elderly couple. They were known for fighting and screaming and having domestic incidences. That day they were in an intense argument and the elderly man angrily grabbed his shotgun to mockingly threaten his wife. It was a long time habit he had. He never aimed it at her. But when he pulled the trigger, the pellets went past her and struck Ronald Opus as he was falling. The shotgun had been loaded by their son, as reported by his neighbor friend who saw their son with a box of shotgun shells. Their own son was being kicked out of the apartment by the mother who had cut him off from financial support. The son, knowing that his father would threaten her with the always unloaded shotgun, loaded it with shells, intent on having him kill her and end the constant bickering. As it would turn out, the pellets didn't hit their intended target but in fact, hit the person who loaded the gun. Their son was Ronald Opus. And had he not loaded the gun, he would have lived. You see, the day before, the apartment manager had wire safety mesh installed a few floors below so the window washers wouldn't die if they fell. That over 13 billion years ago, the universe was created. Millions and trillions of years passed where everything was hotter than you could ever imagine. Eventually everything spread out and cooled down. Gases pulled together, stars were formed, stars died and exploded, sending matter all throughout the cosmos. That matter formed more stars, which exploded, which formed more stars which exploded. And on some of the matter from those exploding stars lies a planet just close enough, but just far enough away to be perfectly suitable for life. And many millions of years later, you're reading this on a screen. After his sister's suicide, a man vowed revenge on Harry Ziegland, the suitor who had broken his sister's heart, prompting her to take her life. The brother shot at Ziegland, who fell to the ground. Believing his task done, the brother shot and killed himself with the same gun. However, the bullet meant for Ziegland did not strike him. Instead, it lodged itself into a nearby tree. 3 years later, Ziegland was working to clear that same location and used dynamite to remove the tree. The explosion sent the bullet flying, striking and killing Ziegland.